So when they realized that everybody turned in their gold, they thought, oh, this, my God, this worked better than we anticipated. We had no idea that everybody was incompetent here. So this is where they went with along with the plan. Of course, it started much sooner than Abraham Lincoln, but I'm just talking about from the point of the bankruptcy, because this is how they created all of us into Sussequus via trust was based on that year, and this is how they have made us all collateral for that debt that none of us took part into. Okay, my classes will show you that technically, when this is all said and done, how the IRS will be your best friend. You see, right now, everyone thinks that we're enemies, and which we are on paper. It gets back into status and standing. When I was going through this system, I had no idea how we all became slaves. And they used various different multifacets to do that. And creating us in all uppercases name and pushing around their documents was how they was able to do that. Now, because they had disparata, non-dependent John Day, dissimilar things ought not to be joined, they got into verbal communication, because had you had the ability, when they put everything on paper, you could see the fraud. And because they knew that, let me give you an example, my name, Deborah, if I spelled an all uppercase name, automatically I would reject it and say, hey, that's not how I spell my name. I don't recognize that all. So what they had to do was trick you into verbal communication to bypass your eyes so that you get into the listening mode, because theirs is where you start to hear things. Okay, now that takes me to the next point. They call idiom sonus, identical sound. So when you pronounce the name Deborah, when pronouncing my name, it sounds one and the same, but it is not. I have been trained to listen to how they really pronounce my name in court, but none the wiser you don't know. So what they've done was got everybody to get into verbal communication, because there was a breach of contractual agreement and they were already in a adhesive contract. And so they knew that if you saw anything on paper, you could see the fraud. So they have to divert your attention from reading to listening. And listening is a very clever way, because if you get into Styles Manual, and I want everybody to go home and you can go to Google and just pick any country, any state. You can pick the state of California and put in California Styles Manual, and that will come up for you. You can put in the United States Styles Manual, and that will come up for you. And long behold, you'll start to read and go, wait a minute, what the heck is this? Wait a minute, this is a different interpretation from what we all have been learned, quite differently from the legalese and quite what we taught from the academic schools. And go, wait a minute, you mean there's a third language here? And we're none the wiser. So they continue to ferment this plan so that one would never discover that. So they have created layers and layers. It's like an onion. They have created so much layers of this. So it's if you come across one and uncover another, then you still have to continue to put forth the effort to discover the second layer, or the third layer, or the fourth layer, or whatever the layers there is. And the courts play their role. So what has had to happen when the Vatican created the Sequential Trust, what he brought with them was the laws of the seven seas onto dry land. Everything around you, everything to this day is based on admiralty. I don't care what you're doing, what they're telling you, it's lies. Because right now everything is based on maritime admiralty. And because it's maritime admiralty, you don't know what you don't know, because you don't know that you don't know it. And that is when you start to interact with the public, because they are public and you're supposed to be private and a sovereign individual. We have flesh and paper going on here. So I'm going to jump right into the court system, because people need to understand why the courts is not working for you. For that matter, any of their agencies are not working for us. Because